Hello, and allons enfants de la patrie. This is Captain Aquarius, coming to you again as Dan First, today on July the 14th, Bastille Day, the anniversary of the day in 1789, when the people of Paris stormed the Bastille, and thereby initiated the events that would culminate in the French Revolution. This day has always been in our history now for centuries, a time in which we are reminded of the capacity of people to change their lives, to initiate new drives toward freedom at a time when once again they have allowed it to be taken away from them. The situation recurs endlessly, as it is upon us also now, when the combination of the greed and manipulation and power mania of those who want too much are complemented by the inattentiveness of those who feel that they deserve too little, so that they lose their power again and again. They have to keep reclaiming it again and again. That is why this particular month, this lunation that we have right now, on July the 19th of 2016, gets two of these recordings, not just one. The part one and part two recordings that are attached to this chart show an exceedingly rich and complex and powerful chart that deserves some additional commentary. You may remember, if you have listened to part one, that I said there that I would talk about the countervailing positive aspects of this chart, which will tend to provide us opportunities and energies that are not available to us really in the more challenging positions of the chart. You may remember that in the part one recording we talked about two of the things that are called crosses in the chart. A T-cross, which consists of two planets and or other chart points in opposition to each other with another planet at a 90-degree angle to both of them, so they form the shape of a T. The other combination, which is even stronger, which also occurs at this full moon, is a grand cross, in which all four of the angles that are possible in the cross are occupied by planets or other major chart points. So the difference between a T-cross is that there are only two 90-degree angles, whereas in a grand cross there are four of them. Now, the angle of 90 degrees, which astrologers call a square, is usually interpreted by people who are circulating the conventionally received information about this as an angle that is stressful and difficult. We can see it, however, differently as an angle of leverage, which provides an opportunity, the pressure, to bring about needed changes. The reason why squares are so difficult for some people is that they induce the changes that are now overdue, that we ought to be making for the sake of not having to go through even more painful changes later. But since most human beings resist change, this is why squares are so difficult for most people. Those who are able to recognize the need for change and their responsibility to activate it themselves can navigate squares much more easily and can even use the energy of them to their advantage. So that this full moon coming on July the 19th is indeed a moment of tremendous opportunity for us on Earth, because the natural leverage of these square alignments is complemented by other tremendous combinations that we see in the chart. Just as you can hear that the television has gone on here in this room, so you're going to hear some Guatemalan TV and music in the background. Again, the year of distraction in 2016 announces itself. Now, if we know then that four angles of 90 degrees in a grand cross will add up to the 360 degrees in a circle, We can also look in the same way at the angles of 120 degrees, which are called trines, because there are 3 of them in a 360-degree circle, and there is a very powerful one here. As you look at the 7th house, the house of marriage, love relationship, and partnerships in general, you see that the sun there is in a angle of 120 degrees with the planet Mars over there in the 11th house in the sign of Scorpio. And these two, in an angle of 120 degrees to each other, form another 120 degree angle, oh boy, with the planet Chiron the healer in the sign of Pisces, down in the 3rd house of communications. Clearly, the angle between Chiron and Mars is very strong. They are both at the 25 degree position in their respective signs, and the angle to the sun is very strong too. And this means that for our purposes as communicators through Chiron in the 3rd house, as people who are working in the dimension of friendship and community, social activism in the 11th house, and also, interestingly enough, the dimension of relationship, partnership, and cooperation in the 7th house, these 3 planets are in a powerful alignment. Now, the element that is important to mention here is that a trine, even a grand trine like this, with all 3 points of the equilateral triangle occupied, is not a dynamic aspect. It is not something that induces action and change in the way that a square or a 180 degree opposition will. It is, however, a useful aspect for organization, for pulling things into good shape and getting them to be stable and useful to us for purposes of keeping things simple and workable. And therefore, this means that at a time when, again, so many people are going to be going crazy in the heat of summer in the northern hemisphere, the energies of Mars, the warrior, in the house of friendship and community, Chiron, the healer, in the house of communications, and the sun, the creator, the leader, the performer, is in the 7th house, all of them in this wonderful angle of relationship, which is marvelous for the holding of space at times when it is very much needed. There is another trine present here too, and we can see this one in the relationship of Pluto in the 1st house of the chart, there at 15 Capricorn, and Jupiter, who is in the 9th house in the sign of Virgo, now moving forward. So this planet, who looks like the number 4, the planet of the money, the abundance, the official organizational power, who used to be in the Grand Cross with the other planets, is now moving ahead out of that relationship. But this relationship of Jupiter and Pluto is wonderful. It permits and it encourages the forming of large-scale, ambitious plans, which are not just wishful thinking and ego inflation. They are thinking big toward things that really can be done for the benefit of all people. And there is another one here, the planet Uranus, down at the bottom of the chart, whom we noticed before in the Grand Cross, in effect at this full moon, is in another 120 degree trine with the rising sign in this chart, Sagittarius, over there represented at the ascendant point by 28 degrees of this sign, so that it is possible for us to emerge in a creative and truly revolutionary way to propose and launch new solutions to things that do not work. The possibilities of this full moon are tremendous if we will only use them. The world, wrote the Irish poet William Butler Yeats, is full of magic things, patiently waiting for our senses to grow sharper. It is time now, with the light of the sun, the fire of Mars, the protective warrior, and the keen insight of Chiron, the healer, to get our senses to grow sharper in the interest of our awakening. Have a pleasant flight.